there's a chapter called, in this book, the Shayas, called, please, if you haven't seen video number 8, the first one I deal with this book, Shaya's book, please go take a look at that. This is, I'm assuming you've looked at that. And I'm zeroing in now on a chapter called The Corporeal World and the Cosmic Abyss. This is a chapter, in a sense, it's about creativity. Shaya is following a creative impulse from its source in the spirit, the world of Bria, the third world up from the bottom, the world of pure ideas and the mind of God, you might say. And this impulse begins there, and he calls it the first crystallization of the first crystallization of all the creatural possibilities. It synthesizes all their spiritual, subtle, and corporeal or prototypical celestial and terrestrial aspects. This synthetic creation serves as a vehicle for divine immanence. When the Shekhinah comes down in its chariot to the lower limit of the cosmic expanse, all created things issue from it and open out on their respective existential planes. So this is the top. The impulse, creative impulse, starts out at the top level here, in the spirit level of the spirit, the integration of the whole human potential, and starts working its way down into the world. So we're following the journey. In a sense, this is what Chekhov is doing when he tells the actor to start to radiate out a ray of awareness. Say the actor tells it, for example, read the play, get an idea of a character, radiate a ray out there on the wall, imagine the character doing things, and then get out there and identify with that character you projected, play acted. It's the same thing. It's starting from this imaginary center here, where the impulses go out, they radiate out, and then they come out into the world, and then little by little the actor embodies his imaginary creations, his rays, and gives them that form that he puts out there becomes the character, the mask of the spirit, the garment of the soul. And then finally the actor kind of, in a sense, distances itself from that, goes back to the spiritual center as the I consciousness, looking down on his character. I'm acting my character, at the same time I'm watching it with my I consciousness, what they say, the performer on top of his material. And we have this multi-level acting, where the spirit is watching the soul and the body do their thing, and illuminating it all the time, so the dead form becomes life form. That's the theatrical way of talking about the same thing that Shaya is talking about here in this chapter about the corporeal world and the cosmic abyss. By the way, the corporeal world is the world that the two lower levels of the four worlds of the Kabbalah. That's Asiyah, the world of doing, and the second, that's the body, and the second world up is the soul. Yitzirah, the world of creating, Yitzirah, the forming, and there the forms are the gestalts, the awareness moments. They have their own world, and finally the spirit is the level that looks down on all that from distance. In the Gestalt therapy session, the spirit would be the part that the magnet that's pulling the whole 3-hour session towards the super objective, towards the final word or message, the existential message that comes out of the session. All right, so these different systems, Gestalt and Chekhov and Kabbalah, are all woven together here. And unfortunately, it's not. That's how I see it. If you're looking for a simplified version where only one of those 3 possibilities is working, well, I guess I'm not the place to look. Okay, so let's just first of all, well, I already said all that stuff. Second of all, or now, next step, let's follow that impulse down, and let's see how the Kabbalah describes it according to Shaya here. All right. So we have the image of the throne God supposedly, or Metatron, the super angel, is sitting on the throne there, or God's, the man's total integrated potential, symbolized by this master angel called Metatron, is sitting on his throne. And or you can think of it as a child or an adult, a person that decides, I'm going to be creative, I'm going to become an actor, something like that. So the throne, God, the super angel, takes a stone from his throne, throws it down into the ground, and one end of that's called the footstool or the foundation stone in the Kabbalah, and one end of the stone lands in the level of the earth, the terrestrial, or the world, and the other end stays stuck in the throne. So it's kind of an imaginary stretched out stone there, which connects the two levels, the macrocosmic spiritual level and the microcosmic world of the live actor on the theater. Okay, so that stone is another way of talking about the same angel, which is also stretched out over the two abysses, right? Michael Nachman Abresov in Likutei Moharan number 7, section number 7, calls it the Eglah, the angel of rain, in that sense that the heavenly dew, the pure ideas are dripping down from the world from the spirit into the world. All right, so anyway, so this impulse goes down there, and let's follow the journey of this creative impulse, this intuitive impulse, and see what happens. In the Kabbalah, there are two very important words that describe the first two stages of the encounter here. And they are tohu and bohu. Tohu and bohu. Tohu, the first thing that this spiritual creative impulse encounters is tohu, which it experiences as a chaotic situation. And so tohu means, if you look at the Jastrow Talmudic, the old dictionary, it says here, to stand still, linger, tarry, pause, to be astounded, gaze, to be confounded, to waste, to be vacant, lie waste. These are all different meanings of that word tohu. Tohu, well, there's the verb taha, those were the verb, and the noun is tohu, waste, desolation, vanity, idleness, regret. Now, and there's a related word shav or shaha, to linger. They're all a whole bunch of cluster there of different words. And what do they mean? This creative impulse runs into a situation that appears, that finds it astounding. It finds it to be a wasteland. You know, T.S. Eliot wrote a thing called The Wasteland. To people, for example, in the hippies in the 60s, 70s, and when I was studying science and chemistry before I walked out of medical school to do theater and music, the Sputnik era, in those days, we more and more got alienated from this world of rational thinking that we were supposedly supposed to be involved in, and we were looking to drop out of the system. Dropping out of the system, when you're out of the system, you look at the system, and the system seems like this totally crazy world of professors and politicians running around. Everybody's locked into his role, rigid roles in the system. So to a hippie, a dropout, the world that to those people seems totally logical, to a dropout it seems totally chaotic. Doesn't make any sense in that sense. So it's a kind of a mind trip here to get used to looking at the rational world of deductive logic as chaotic. But that's what goes on here in the Kabbalah. Okay, so the first step is dropping out. And in the first video, the last preceding video, I pointed out that there's another process in the Kabbalah rituals they call shmittah. Every 7 years, in a sense, everyone's supposed to drop out of the system. The word shata, shmittah, shamat, to drop means let's see, I have the definition here. It means, where is it? Here it is. Shamat, to loosen, release, break away. That's the point. You want to break away. You know, Kelly Clarkson wrote a song, Breakaway. very famous song. She's talking about breaking away from her childhood situation in a little town, and she wants to head off for you know, Hollywood or something like that, or wherever she's heading off for, the big city. So the idea of breaking away from a world which everyone in that town thinks is totally logical, and to a person that wants to break away, it seems totally chaotic and illogical. Okay, in that sense, so we have breaking away. So we have, every 7 years, we're supposed to break away from the system, and they release all the slaves, and that kind of a process. So the first thing that this impulse encounters is a world where there's, if we think in terms of awareness, this first awareness moment encounters a wall where there's no awareness, a situation of confluence, lack of awareness. There's no way to communicate with this system. I'm out of it. I'm just dropped out. I'm a dropout. I broke away. Okay, now the next impulse, assuming this is a healthy impulse trying to establish itself, is that this person that's now broken away at the same time hasn't really developed himself as a performer. So far, it's just an instinct. I want to be a performer. I want to do the show. I want to build this character. But it's just the beginning. So this ray going out, or this creative impulse, next runs into a situation called bohu. Bohu. And there, the dictionary meaning of bohu is to be stirred up, confounded, in disorder, broken into, to burst forth. A lot of different meanings here. And again, in some ways it's another chaotic situation, but it's a different kind of chaos. Instead of a rational system that seems chaotic to a person that's stopped being rational, here we have a situation where a person has a lot of impulses. Like, think of it as a hippie, you know. I want to try this, I want to do that, I want to this, I give in to feelings, everything's okay, you know. But there's no focus there, because the new released personality, the new released artistic impulse has not built itself up. It's just a chaotic mumbo jumbo of all kinds of creative impulses. The ray is radiating out into all kinds of other rays. There's no structure there. So then we begin a process which in the Kabbalah they call material clarification, where and they have a symbol for it in the Kabbalah called the kings of Edom. The kings of Edom. These are the kings that preceded Adam and Eve running the world. There were 7 kings that tried to run the world, and they didn't have any wives, and they couldn't. They died because they couldn't get the spiritual nourishment they need, or whatever. And the last one had a wife, but somehow that didn't work out either. 7 kings of Edom before Adam and Eve. Now, in this case, Adam and Eve symbolizes the proper relationship between awareness and the contact boundary that I'm contacting. But if that poor contact, kind of good contact is not established yet, then we have what we call in Gestalt therapy self-interruptions, the different ways that a person sabotages his own creativity, his own action in his life. You know, there's confluence, no awareness at all, introjection, swallowing some dibuk or other, projection, putting all your energy out there into other people, assuming they're doing it to you, and you don't have any energy to do anything at all. Or retroflexion, your energy wants to go out, you turn it back in your body, and you become some kind of rigid, nervous wreck. Or egotism, where you have a frozen idea of who you think you are, and then therefore you don't allow yourself to be creative or to really take a risk in your life and do action. All right, so this creative impulse there runs into all these self-interruptions. And as a result, there are a lot of weak gestalts that want to get build up into strong gestalts, into strong actions, rays, but they don't get that far. So that's the stage of bohu. Now there's an interesting theatrical exercise that demonstrates this very well, and I'm just going to show you for a second what it is. It's exactly more or less what they do in Tai Chi. In Tai Chi, you know, I'm not going to stand up, I don't have much room in this video here. The person is supposed to be totally flowing in touch with his body awareness and all the joints and all your images, and everything is just kind of flowing and not fixating on any one thing. That's exactly the idea. A whole bunch of weak gestalts, and none of them becomes the strong gestalt that has the power to organize all the consciousness into a new idea. So if I do my pure process mode, it's called, watch how I do this now. Okay, I'm doing my pure process mode. I'm watching myself, and I'm aware of not having any particular pattern. I'm conscious of my breathing, and my sound is coming out just in a very free. I'll stop talking for a moment. It's just coming out with my breathing. That's stage number one. That is bohu. Okay, a lot of weak gestalts. Nothing's coming out, very clearly focused. The next step is, in the Kabbalah, illustrates what they call formative creation, where these gestalts start coalescing into specific events. So now I'm going to do it in this pure process mode, and watch what happens now. I'm watching myself. They say, oh, it's like a spider doing push-ups or something. Okay, so now I'm a spider doing push-ups, and I let my voice. What kind of noise would a spider doing push-ups make? He would go. Now I did my form. Okay, I coalesced. The strong gestalt emerged. The creative idea, the ray radiated out onto the radiation. Metatron radiated a ray. The avir, the ether, received that, or Adam radiated out a ray, and Eve received it. The Eve representing the bina, the other side, or the receiver. Or we could say that chokhmah radiates at a ray, and bina, which means to build, received it. But somehow this back and forth between the two elements of perception and this, in this phenomenological point of view, connect up there and create this spider doing push-ups, okay? Now I allow my spider doing push-ups to disappear, go back into the void. I'm back into the pure process mode. I'm back into the world of bohu, the world of bohu. Weak gestalts, everything is possible, but nothing is really happening specifically, all right? Everything is happening, but just in potential, in seed form, but nothing is going beyond that. Okay, so that is an example of bohu, the next stage. And you notice when it shifted over from creative, the stage where the spider emerged from the field of weak gestalts, that's called creative formation. Formative creation. Formative creation. Why? Because the word form in the Kabbalah here, the way Shaya is using it, form refers to gestalts. Where there is form, there is gestalt. So the world of Yetzirah, the second world up, is the world of formation. Yetzirah, form, litzor. So to make a form is to make a gestalt, a figure that comes out of the ground. And as a matter of fact, if you want to get the root of that, look at the word in Hebrew, tzur, samich vav resh, or tzayar, which means to draw something. Or tzarad is to bundle. So what's happening there is when the spider emerges from the ground, this figure emerges from the ground, a whole bunch of weak gestalts are bundled into a strong gestalt. So the language tells you even that the people that made up this stuff thousands, hundreds of years ago, they were very aware of how to use words. And when they use the word surah, when they use the word Yitzirah and they're related to Tzarad and Sur, it's not accident, okay? So just like the words bohu and tohu, in everyday Hebrew now we say, oy, matzav, tohu bohu. We just say, oh, it's chaotic. But really, tohu and bohu mean, yes, they do mean chaotic situation, but totally different kinds of chaos. Tohu is chaos, which is pretends to not be chaos. It pretends to be a rational system of the world that sensible people are supposed to live in, but to a person that doesn't want to be sensible and wants to be intuitive rather than rational, inductive rather than deductive, that seems like chaos. So that's one kind of chaos, and bohu is the other kind of chaos. This new hippie, he hasn't yet decided what to do with his life, except smoke joints maybe to look for some ideas. He's in a world, different kind of chaos. It's a world of weak gestalts, intuitive impulses. He can go with this, he can go with that any second. And that's another kind of chaos, but it's the opposite kind of chaos. So in the one case you have too much deduction, in the other case too much induction, and the whole process here, the creative process, just like any other traditional system of wisdom, is looking for the middle way, the proper balance. In the Kabbalah we talk about balancing the right pillar, Abraham, symbolized by Abraham, intuitive, with the left pillar symbolized by Yitzchak, and to get to the middle pillar symbolized by Jacob, and the proper balance is the middle way. Okay, so there are all kinds of ways to talk about the same thing here, but right now I'm focusing particularly on this chapter in the book. Okay, so let me see, I've covered a bunch of stuff here. One other thing. When the spider emerged from the ground of infinite intuitive possibilities there, weak gestalts, remember the first one, the tohu, was dropping out. So the second one, the bohu, has the meaning of to break through, to burst forth. And that sense that this potential idea of the spider burst through from this chaos here and became the spider, emerged. Broke through from the ground into the figure. Another way of looking at it is that all of these impulses in the bohu state, they're all opposites somehow. They're all conflicting with each other. And so we have the process of what they call tzimtzum, that this new impulse of the spider somehow encompasses all of those opposites, and all the opposites, according to the Kabbalah, are negations of the oneness of God, and all of those negations are negated by the emerging new image that encompasses and cancels out all these weak gestalts and takes on the form of the spider. So the spider is a new idea that comes out of the void, and in order for that to happen, all these weak gestalts had to contract themselves to allow the empty space for the spider to emerge, the new idea to emerge. And so the theory of tzimtzum is locked right in here to the theory of the tohu and the bohu. There's no end to how deep and how complicated and interlocked all these things can become. All right, so that idea of breaking through, remember we said every 7 years there's a period to drop out, the shmittah. And the other, every 50 years, there's a period that's called the Jubilee, and the root is yovel, which means to break out, to flow forth, to break through. Okay? So the Jubilee is the spider, in a sense, and once the spider's done his thing, he's going to disappear into the void, and then it'll start another cycle, another 50 years, where, again, first comes the breaking out of the spider world, and then finding a new pre-speed, a new pure process mode situation, and waiting for the next new bright idea to emerge out of the void. And that might be, for example, the pencil sharpener, and the whole thing emerges becomes a pencil sharpener. And then another 50 years goes by, and so the process of the history of the world, and at the same time, is the momentary process of the figure ground reversals and creativity happening every second in our lives. All right, now that's the basic overall model of what happens to that creative impulse as it works its way down into this world. It first runs into a brick wall of an unresponsive environment, and second of all, a period of chaos where it's searching for a new strong gestalt from all the potential, a new actuality from all the possibilities. All right. Now, how can we go on from there? Let's take you might think of it as there's a stage of the foundation stone where the impulse is beginning to be formulated and to come down. Then, ideally, that impulse would radiate out, and this is we get to the Michael Chekhov work, and radiates out, all the different stages of the Michael Chekhov process, building up the mask of the character. Follow the whole 41 exercises, the PGs, psychological gestures. You do the whole process, you end up with a beautiful character, ideally. But the trouble is that everybody is not an ideal metatron, an ideal free spirit, an ideal synthesizer, an ideal healthy performer. So there's the flaw in Michael Chekhov's system. You have a room full of actors paying a lot of money to learn a technique, and they're learning on the assumption that they're all capable of doing this. But the trouble is, most of them aren't. In fact, practically nobody is, because everybody's got our hang-ups, our self-interruptions. The ways that we sabotage the process, or our conditioning, our habits can sabotage the process. And those habits stand before us like a big tohu, a big wall, and our creativity struggles to work through, and in most cases succeeds only partially. All right, so then what's missing from and here's where we get to the third stage. What's missing from Chekhov's system is basically what I would call Gestalt therapy, the process of a way to help people that are interfering with their creativity, whether they're conditioning from other sources in their life or whatever the problems might be, to achieve the results that ideally Chekhov wants us to achieve. Now, the kabbalistic system is not one-sided like Chekhov's system is. On the other hand, Gestalt therapy also is one-sided, because Gestalt therapy deals with the repair of the problem without going on and helping the actor become a fully developed the mask of the character, the whole character. So we have two systems, each one which we have this vast panorama that is the Kabbalah, which is Chaya's roadmap here in a sense. On the other hand, we have two, quote, half-vast systems. Half-vast systems. We have Chekhov's system, which is half-vast because it doesn't deal with the problems that interfere. And we have Gestalt therapy, which only goes as far as treating people as patients and not as performers. So that's also half-vast. And what I believe is what needs to be done is the integration of these two systems, which as far as I know nobody is doing except me these days. And the closest example I could give you to that is Mumbo Minds, the work that I observed when back in 1976, 77, I had the opportunity to be an observer at workshops that Mumbo Minds was doing with undergraduate students in the experimental theater program at NYU, and I thank them very much for that opportunity. And there, one of the main projects that they worked on with students was called the Personal Myth Project. And I want to mention another person that's very famous in this area, is a famous actor called, in the experimental theater world, called Spalding Gray. Spalding Gray was known for his monologues, where they went on an hour and a half or so, and he would take some cluster of areas in his life. And the Personal Myth Project is very similar in that respect, and it encompasses both elements. In other words, in Gestalt therapy, when you work through a series of, it's called like peeling the onion, work through a series of games, destructive habits that we have, and you, one by one, peel these away from your personality to allow your more pure, unhindered action to emerge. These things are, from the point of view of theater, from the point of view of therapy, they're discards, things that you will hopefully not use so much. For example, judging people instead of seeing them. That's called the top dog underdog game, where you pretend you're the top dog that has the power to judge and condemn people, and the underdog is the victim that feels condemned and judged, and he has to get back at you some other way. That's a typical game structure that needs to be peeled away. If, for example, if an actor is going to be able to act and not feel totally judged by the audience and self-conscious, he needs to peel away that ego crud. But of course, Michael Chekhov doesn't give the actor a way to do that. He tells the actor, you know, don't succumb to your rational mind and all that stuff. Be a pure spirit, but he doesn't tell the actors how to do that, of course, and most of the actors don't know and don't want to know. They don't want to get involved in that stuff. They want to keep it simple, just fly around the room, you know, just creative, like a dance class. Okay, anyway, so in the personal myth project thing, ideally, and Mabu minds that did this exercise did not do the Gestalt therapy. They just did the theater side, like Michael Chekhov. But the exercise itself embodies the two sides. It's not half-vast, it's totally vast, because it's telling the actors to use these discards, these parts of yourself, whether you've discarded them or not, to use some aspects of your personality, the mythology that you live, the illusions that focus on your life, or the search for truth that you're trying to make in your life that somehow keeps getting stuck here and getting stuck there. And whether dealing with that personal myth, that series of games, whatever you want to call it, somehow or other incorporating that into a theater piece. And it's done by one actor. Each actor has his own personal myth project. So they're asking, the Mabu Mind's directors were asking these students to somehow or other do, at least in a skeleton form, this process of combining work on your life or self-awareness about the different elements of your personal myths with the creative work and making theater out of that. For example, an actor could take the figure of Albert Einstein maybe that symbolizes to him somebody that he can identify with or somebody that he doesn't want to identify with, and relate that to his own personal development, how he's like him, how he's not like him, things like that. And I don't know exactly the process that Spalding Gray used when he made his pieces. From what I've seen on the internet, I didn't see his work. I wasn't in New York at the time, and I didn't see his performances. But I did see on the internet clippings and big sections of his work, and I didn't see evidence that he was really doing such a great job of the Gestalt work there. He was using certainly all kinds of aspects of his life, his personality, and everything, but the fact that this man, at the age of 64, after doing this sort of thing for since most of his life, doing performance one way or another, committed suicide, shows that in some way the healing, the Gestalt therapy that could have been part of the process and perhaps should have been part of the process was not part of the process enough. It's possible that if he had been doing more work in the area of self-awareness and you know, that he might have not succumbed to those self-interruptions and killed himself. Of course, there are other factors. I understand. I read that he had an accident, an automobile accident or something, and all kinds of physical problems. And then, whatever the situation was, you know, a lot of people have automobile accidents with problems and don't kill themselves. So we don't know why. But so here we have two situations: the personal myth project done in a relatively healthy way, although shallow, with these students. And on the other hand, we have Spalding Gray, who did it very intensively for many years and is very famous for it, but somehow or other succumbed to the self-interruptions, you might say. So there's two sides of it. Now, going back to the Kabbalah, there's built into this chapter on the descent of the creative impulse into the world is the element of what they call the cosmic abyss. And by that he means basically what we call hell. There are two places where the Gestalt process, as the other side that's missing from Michael Chekhov's work, could be involved. One is in the process where that creative impulse, where the actor that's kind of wishy-washy, a million different intuitive things that doesn't know what to do, I've already broken out of the system, but now what do I do, you know? In that process, a lot of times people go to make the wrong turn and end up with ego crud, all kinds of stuff which interferes, and that that's the point at which, according to the Kabbalah, we have Satan gets involved. People are tempted to go to extremes, to do excess things. For example, the self-judgment trip. You know, the judging people up. For example, take a monster, a villain like Adolf Hitler. You know, might have had a very authoritarian father that was judging him a lot, and then he started judging people a lot, and this need to judge people became this enormous tumor that took over his personality, and he became one of the biggest monsters in the history of the world. That's an example of Satan taking over what should be a natural process of Gestalt formations, things emerging and going back into the void, and becoming strong Gestalts as the character or something. But in his case, this game, these X minus X, these extreme opposites in the personality, reified into some kind of a satanic evil. Okay? So that's one place. A search for truth, for example, what he went through maybe after World War I, and watching what happened to Germany and inflation, everything like that, whatever his reasons were, somehow or other his search for truth. In fact, I remember once read that he was an artist. He painted beautiful landscapes. So this artist impulse, somehow or other, in the case of Adolf Hitler, the devil took over in terms of the Kabbalah, and this reified into total extremes. Okay? And that was a total negation of the one without a second, you might say, in terms of the theology. Another example is let's say the actor doing the Michael Chekhov process is working on his all kinds of PGs and everything, and he's stuck because he might be too self-conscious, or he might be too intellectual, he can't function properly, let his imagination go, or he might have all kinds of physical stress in his body because he doesn't know how to, he's turning his energy back on himself. I gave you a list of the 5 self-interruptions. So this kind of self-interruption process probably sabotages most of what goes on in a Michael Chekhov studio compared to what could be going on there. And so, in terms of the Kabbalah, we would say that these are examples where these opposites, the extreme opposites, for example, the self-judgments, take over and cripple the performer. And that's where the Gestalt therapy should be used. It's built into the theory. The idea of this metatron creative angel, you know, the fact that something, a spiritual process like this, which is coming from God, whatever you want to call it, that it does fall. We have this fallen person these fallen actors in a Michael Chekhov studio. The fact that they've fallen indicates that they've started out as relatively pure souls and fell. And the fact that they did start out as pure souls, according to the Kabbalah, according to this religious point of view, indicates that the potential to return is there. So we have the idea of teshuvah, returning, built into the theory of the Kabbalah, that no matter how deep a person falls into all kinds of self-interruptions, evil, the person has potential to come back. And so ideally, we have the situation where if a person simultaneously, with his Michael Chekhov exercises, was doing the Gestalt work on getting these discards, these peeling this onion here, of his games and his self-interruptions, and setting them up as discards, and then he can use those discards as part of his characters, and then his characters would have much more in the way of opposites and polarities built into them, just like Chekhov wants. Chekhov tells his actors, oh, you should have as many polarities to avoid monotony, but unfortunately, if a person is basically monotonous because he's just locked into rigid habits, just preaching to actors they should stop being monotonous is not going to stop them from being monotonous. Preaching is, Michael Chekhov, Michael, dear boy, preaching is not enough. You got to do the work. And even though apparently in your life you avoided it, doesn't mean all your students should avoid being totally creative. I want your students to be vast and not half vast, okay? you give us a lot, and I appreciate how you gave me the other side that I didn't have from Gestalt therapy. So you taught me how to be not less half-vast, but now I want all your students to stop being so half-vast, okay? I want them to be vast. I want them to incorporate the work on the teshuva process on learning how to work with discards. Here's a typical example of an exercise that you do in, this is actually from the Mabul Minds technique, but it fits right in with Gestalt therapy. It's an example of how to redeem these fallen sides of yourself. Well, let's start from the Gestalt process first of all. Let's say you're a top dog, underdog expert. You're into judging everybody, all right? So in Gestalt therapy, the therapists say, okay, I want you now when you see that you're doing this top judging, for example, judging your father, saying he's no damn good. All right, I want you to go ahead and do some more of that judge. Really judge your father there, and then have him judge you, and go back and play this top dog underdog game a few times. Go ahead, do that. So the client, the patient, the actor does with the two chairs, you know, judging the other side and then judging the other side. The battle goes on. The extremes get more and more extreme, more rigidified, and then the director might stop and say, "So now you understand? You see what you're doing to yourself?" "Oh yeah, I see." So that way the client gets a little bit of self-awareness, sees himself. There's a more thorough way of working on something like that. You simply tell the client, "Okay, now close your eyes," and this is called the rhythm of contact and withdrawal. So this is like, in a sense, going back to the kabbalistic model here, this is the sense telling that actor, "Okay, now stop fighting and killing yourself on the level of the lowest world there, Malchut, Asiyah. Let's jump back to where it all started from, you know, the God's throne, the spiritual level of the synthesizer. Close your eyes, go into the void, and find a new idea." That's the rhythm of contact and withdrawal. And the withdrawal jacks you up back to start all over again, another descent. So you go into the void, and let's say you see, "Oh, I see an image of a cloud," you know. So you start playing the cloud, and by being the cloud, somehow you get a new creative idea, which encompasses the two sides that were stuck down there in the world, and you start a new cycle with that. Another 50 years, another shmittah, and another yovel, and everything. That's one way to do it. There's another exercise that they use in the Mabul Minds theater, which is not so therapeutically obvious, but it's basically the same idea. The actor, let's say he sees himself as I don't know. He's playing a judge, okay? He's playing a very judgmental character. So and Mabul Minds will want to, let's say that this judgmental character is part of the score, or part of the junk collage of forms that this actor is calling his mask, his character. But the Mabul Minds people want to help the actor get to what Chekhov calls the I consciousness, so that he could be the performer on top of his material. So the exercise that Mabul Minds people might do is called the mocking your forms exercise, where the actor projects, watches him. First, I go over there and I do my judging form. I'm judging. Hey, you're no good. You're no good. You're no good. You're good. And then the actor moves back a few meters away and watches himself do that, and he starts mocking from kind of a critical, objective point of view, making a parody, joking about that judging character. So, "Oh, I see you over there, Franklin, you're judging. You're judging. You're playing God. You're pretending you know everything. Yeah. You see what I did now? I stretched that form, which was originally just this. I made it into a much physically and vocally much more spread out variety built into it. So I freed up that X minus X opposition judge, the judge and the victim. I made it much more expressive, opened it up to a lot of possibilities. In that sense, I found my I consciousness, which is my attitude towards that form. And my attitude towards the form is, yeah, you're a nincompoop for getting stuck in that judging form all the time. And that attitude freed me up, gave me my eye consciousness, which is what Michael Chekhov wants the actor to get to, the eye consciousness. That's the level of the spirit. Again, the level of the spirit. The integrated, that's able to see all these forms, all these oppositions from a perspective, from a higher, a more objective point of view. And that's what they call the performer on top of his material. And the more I play with that, criticizing that rigid X minus X judge-victim form of mine, that's the more tripping I'm doing. That's the tripping. I freed myself from being locked into the system, and I'm now free to play with it. So that's the tripping idea is the what do I call it before? Okay. So let's go back now to the Kabbalah. Here we have labels for all of these things. All right. I think of it as there are three phases that a person, a spiritual seeker, needs to go through to free himself from the world of tohu, from the world of chaos in his life. And the first one is called material clarification. That's the place where you dropped out, and now you have this world of the bohu. Now you went from tohu to bohu, and now you have all kinds of potential impulses. The stage of the pure process mode and all that stuff. Little things bubbling up, but nothing really coming together yet into a character. So there's one place where that's the first stage. The second stage, and that's called material clarification. Okay, in the sense that you're this kind of amorphous sea of impulses here, and gradually, as you strengthen your gestalts, you get more and more focused. You develop your skills, especially very important. You learn how to make your body, for example, the vessel of your spirit. You're doing all these Michael Chekhov wonderful physical exercises. There's certainly a place for those things. But like I say, they're not the main thing. They're just kind of like one step in the process. The next step is formative. After the material clarification comes the second stage, which is formative creation. I talked about that before, where that's the place where all these strong gestalts are beginning to emerge. So you send out a ray, you have an idea about a character, you project it, you find the center, you switch over, become the character, the body of the character. You develop the whole character with all the different opposites and everything. So that's called formative creation, where you start off with one ray, one gestalt, and one of those weak impulses in the pure process mode takes over, becomes the spider doing push-ups, becomes the mask of your soul, the garment of your soul, and that's working with what they call formative creation. Okay. So in terms of, by the way, in terms of the four worlds here, the material clarification was working on the level, first of all, in the world of doing, asiyah, malchut. The second one, formative creation, is the world of building up strong gestalts. That's yitzirah, the second level up. And now you want to get to the third level up, which is going back basically to Briya, the world where you started from before you projected yourself down, before the impulse started going down into the world. And you need to get to that to get to the eye of the character. I, not E-Y. E-I-E-Y-E, but I, for pronoun I of the character, eye consciousness. So that's called the sabbath, the point of rest. So we have this 6 days of creating the mask of the character, and then finally the eye consciousness is the place where you're able to be here and now, in touch with what's happening, getting free ideas from the void, wherever, and then illuminating, criticizing, illuminating, objectively, making fun of, or whatever, that image that you built up during the previous 6 days of the world of formative creation. Now you take that junk collage you've assembled, that is your mask of the character, and from the eye consciousness point of view, you're able to get illuminate it, for example, the way I mocked that form of the judge, and you can do your joncolage in a creative way so that you have live form instead of dead form. Because the danger is if you build up characters with too much rational control and with too much extremes and with too much Satan getting involved there and all that stuff without doing enough Gestalt work, you're going to end up with a rigid idea of the character. And if you just do that rigid character, it's just going to be another example of primitive acting, one-dimensional acting, rather than three-dimensional acting. Right? It's not going to be what they call, what Chekhov calls multi-level, or the human state, where the human state is this split between the spirit up here, illuminating the performer on top of his material, and that's the three-dimensional acting that Chekhov wants you to get to. All right, so you see what happens is you radiate, the creative impulse starts off on the top of the throne of God, moves down into the world, and has to work its way up again, do teshuvah, return to God, to the level where basically where it came from, so that the complete creative process is basically returning to the one that started it in the first place. Now, it's not just that we, of course, dialectically speaking here, we have to realize that philosophically it's not just the one we're talking about. We're talking about a process of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. The one to the many to the one and the many. Identity to difference to identity and difference. That's Hegel's terminology. And so, the thesis to the antithesis to the synthesis. The thesis, which is the original spiritual impulse, has built into it the whole process. It's the one and the many. When you go down, the rays all radiate out, you build up your character, you work on all the oppositions, you find your way back to the source. You pass through that stage of the opposites, all the opposites, the antithesis, and then finally when you get back to the character itself, your eye consciousness, radiating out new ideas to that character, which is now totally built up of discarded oppositions that have been patched together, that's now the one and the many. The oneness, which is radiating out into this manyness. But since this manyness, all these games that you have peeled away from yourself, are also you. They're not somebody else, they're your games. So you can identify and you know how exactly to illuminate them because they're you. So you're having this process of personal integration, integrating your life and your art at the same time. Chekhov makes a big point of that actors don't know how to work. The actors that don't know how to work in a creative way like this end up just getting stuck in all these psychological stuff. They play around with all these extremes in the characters and everything, and a lot of them end up being very neurotic people. Let's take, for example, Spalding Ray. I don't know. I'm not saying he was neurotic. I'm saying he killed himself, and that could be an example of what the dangers of not working properly as a performer. When I heard about his suicide, and since I knew him back in the 70s when I worked with the Richard Schechner groups, I said to myself, too bad I couldn't have worked with him. But I guess in those days he was a big performer and I was a little nobody, so he probably wouldn't want to bother with me. But they say in the Kabbalah that the stone that the builders rejected has become the foundation stone. That's how I feel about Spalding Ray and the relationship that I have with him. That whole physical theater cult in those days, you know, and here I was coming out with that intellectual stuff and everything. In my search, I still hadn't found Mabel Minds, I still hadn't found Kabbalah, you know, so they rejected me they didn't take me seriously as a performer or a director or anything. And here it is. I'm looking with the wisdom of hindsight now. If I can look back at Spalding Ray's life, maybe in some way it was not a mistake. It was a mistake to reject this foundation stone, because this foundation stone turned out to be the foundation stone of a vast system that would have perhaps been of use to people that were doing half vast, half-vast, partial truths, by emphasizing the body, for example, and if you do a whole bunch of personal myth searching and make a show out of that without doing the teshuva process, the gestalt work to illuminate, to redeem all of that stuff that you're playing with there, then we see it can be fatal. How many actors end up on drugs? You know, and God knows what else they're into. You know, with some kind of a search for pushing themselves, you know, to succeed, and paying the price for not having a proper instruction and proper willingness to explore a process vast enough to encompass their whole lives, not just part of their lives. All right, let's see. Okay, so there are 4 levels here. The impulse starting out in the throne of God, in the world of pure spirit, descending on a ray, encountering an alien world of with Chekhov, the irrational mind, you know, which is because your enemy. There has this deductive system. So then you need to drop out of that. The shmittah, shamat, drop out of that. Drop out of tohu, go to bohu, where you grope around, do your physical training and everything, and build up your skills, strengthen your gestalts from weak gestalts to strong gestalts, gradually build up this character of all kinds of rich opposites. At the same time, you're doing the, so that's the second step. Wait, so we have the first step. The throne, the top, world of Briah, down into the world, where you run into this deductive logic of the matrix, the everyday society, freeing yourself from that, moving up to the world of Yetzirah, the world of awareness and rays and all kinds of identifications and phenomenology of the spirit and this whole kabbalistic mumbo jumbo here that we're dealing with. And then finally, and including in that, the work on the gestalt process to make sure that it stays healthy, and then going back to the I consciousness, back to the Shabbat. You might say the gestalt process is helping you to get to that I consciousness, because it's helping you to illuminate all of those oppositions that could have the danger of just becoming dead form if they're not used creatively. So there are 4 stages. Spirit, Olam Briah, the world of spirit, down to the Olam of the world of doing, making, asiyah, the corporeal, the body, up to the soul, with all the awareness and all the opposites, and then back to the spirit again, but the spirit now bringing with you all of that creative energy, all the creativity that you built up, and redeeming it so that it's properly balanced and what they call live form. There are 4 stages. All right, descent for the sake of ascent. Awareness and rays and all this stuff. That's phenomenology, inductive logic versus deductive logic. Awareness versus thinking. These are intangible means from the point of view of a rational, scientific, deductive mind. This is mumbo jumbo. This is nonsense. On the other hand, we are getting to results that even in a nickel dime materialistic world, tangible results. You know, if the show works, if the actors know how to function, well, that could bring in big bucks for somebody.